Assalamu alaikum viewers. Today the topic of discussion is about activation of energy, and we will also discuss how enzyme increase the speed of a chemical reaction. So without wasting any time, let's start our video. First of all, we define what is the activation of energy. Minimum amount of energy to start a chemical reaction is called activation of energy. This is the simplest definition of activation of energy. Suppose this is a mountain, and at this point the petrol of your car is finished. This is your car. At this point there is a petrol pump, and at this point you just require a push and your car move to this point with no fuel. So this push is very important for your car to reach this point. So the force which we applied to the car at this point is same like the activation of energy. For a chemical reaction to start, there is some amount of energy which we apply, which is required for chemical reaction to start. So this is the energy we give to the car, so car reach its destination. So that's the same case happen with the enzyme. This is just an example. We have A and B are the reactants, and it's converted into the product of C. This is the reactants and this is the product. This is a reaction, and for convert A plus B to C, there is some amount of energy which is required to convert the reactants into the product. For example, this energy of activation is 100 joule. Joule is a unit of energy. So 100 joule is the activation energy of this reaction for converting the reactant into the product. So this is the activation energy for this reaction. Every reaction has its own activation of energy. If the activation of energy is less than 100, so this reactant is not converted into the product, because the activation of energy which is required for the reaction is not much need to the reaction, so it is not converted into the product because the energy of activation is low. So the reactant is not converted into the product. This is the small concept of activation of energy. The second concept is how enzyme increase the speed of a chemical reaction. Enzyme increase the speed of a chemical reaction by lowering its activation energy. EA is the activation energy. Sorry, AE. Enzyme increase the speed of a chemical reaction by lowering its activation energy. So this is your chemical reaction which required 100 joule activation of energy. In the presence of enzyme lower the activation energy and convert it into 10 joule. So in the presence of enzyme, the energy of activation is 10 joule in the presence of enzyme. So, in the presence of enzyme, the reactant are converted into the product most immediately than the this reaction. So, with the decrease in the activation of energy, the speed of a chemical reaction is increased. So, enzyme work in this way, it decrease the activation of energy and increase the speed of a chemical reaction. Every reaction has its own activation of energy. So, this is the way the enzyme uh, increase the speed of a chemical reaction. Let us draw the graph and understand the topic more accurately. Suppose that this is the man that is standing there. This is the man that is present at this point and he wants to go at this point. This is his destination. So he this man travel a long distance to reach his destination. This case is absence of enzyme. This case happens in the absence of enzyme. I will mention it here. Absence of enzyme. If the enzyme is present, there is a large amount of distance present. If the enzyme is present, so enzyme increase the speed of the speed of this reaction by lower its energy of activation. So enzyme decrease the activation of energy and this man reaches destination with less amount of time as compared to the this region. So in this way, enzyme, this case in the presence of enzyme. So enzyme increase the rate of chemical reaction by decrease the activation of energy. Let's move over last point of this lecture. Suppose there are the substrate that reacts with the enzyme and convert it into the product. The function of enzyme to this substrate enzyme, you see that there is a disarrangement present between the substrate. So the function of enzyme uh, arrange these substrate into a specific manner, so the collision energy between the substrate is increased and it converted into the product with less amount of time, and the speed of a reaction is increased with the presence of enzyme just arrange the substrate and the substrate is easily converted into the product. This is the main reaction of enzyme. This is how enzyme increase the speed of a chemical reaction. In this lecture, we will discuss three things. First, activation energy. Second, how enzyme increase the speed of a chemical reaction with the help of graph and with the help of example. So, if you have any query, any doubt about this,